Welcome to the WA Property Q&A, the podcast where I explore the ins and outs of buying property in Western Australia. I'm your host, Peter Fletcher, and each week I interview local property experts to help you to develop a deep understanding of the nuances of buying property in WA. From market trends to legal considerations, no topic is off limits. But before we dive in, a friendly reminder. While we provide valuable information, it's important to note that nothing discussed in this podcast should be construed as personal investment advice. Always remember to seek the appropriate professional advice for your specific circumstances. Now, let's get started and unlock the secrets to successful property buying in WA. Welcome to another episode of the WA Property Q&A podcast.
Yes.
So good to be here this week with none other. I don't often get a Hall of Fame recipient in the room, but Trevor Dunkley is a Hall of Fame recipient. Is that right, Trev?
No, not 100% correct. It's Liz who's got the Hall of Fame, and she took out the West Australian REWA Excellence 3 years in a row, which got her into the Hall of Fame. So that's the Hall of Fame side.
So the Hall of Fame kind of goes to Liz Sturzel, and Liz is your partner.
Correct, yes. So we started the business together, just over 20 years ago.
Yes. And the business is?
Property Wizards, buyers agents.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We specialize just in buying properties for investors, for developers, for homeowners, and commercial property as well. So we cover that whole broad range of different types of properties, which covers different strategies, different budget amounts. So all of those things come to play in the process, yes. And it's, I suppose, because we've been doing this for 20 years, we've won many awards for excellence. And then Liz got into the Hall of Fame last year, so all good.
And you're not only recognised in WA as for your work as buyers agents, you're also recognised nationally.
Yes. So twice now, and this is Liz's hard work as well. She's been recognised nationally as the best buyer's agent, or that Property Wizards have been the best buyer's agent in the whole of the nation. So that's been a really nice, fabulous sort of win. So we'll see how it unfolds this year.
That is a big accolade, Trev.
No, it is. It's a great achievement. It's nice to be acknowledged, to have that acknowledgement. Yes, and I think for clients, it's also very nice for them to know where we come from, what the background is, what the achievements in that are as well.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. And now today we want to talk about buying investment properties.
Yes.
And how to buy an investment property. And but before we answer the question how to buy an investment property, and we should say how to buy an investment property in Perth.
In Perth, yes.
How do they award? What does the awards for excellence mean? What is that? Is that because of the number of properties you buy, or is it?
No, I think it really comes down to the servicing, looking after, making sure clients are well treated, that one understands their dynamics of what they're after. And quite often people come to us and they've got mixed ideas about property and property investing, and then there's definitely an educational side that takes place in going through different ideas, strategies, things like that. And I think all of these different aspects of what one is looking at and bringing into the fold of investing in property is very important, and very important to be able to take that person on that journey, that they understand all the different aspects, the different dynamics, and are comfortable with them, being able to actually answer all their questions. And you've got questions that come from all parts of the field, really, and it's good that they ask the questions. It's good that they come with their questions and that we can then answer them, take them through what the dynamics or the situations are relating to the question, because very often questions come that are a little bit loaded in a sense. So it's really understanding where they're coming from and then being able to take them on that journey to make sure that, yes, they understand exactly what it is that they're getting into. There's no little bit of information that's left out which could have a very big negative impact down the track, because you never know what a investor's experience is. Are they professional investors who've done this many times before? Or are they just starting out on a journey and they're hunting for information from all over? There's a lot that is on the internet. You can Google a lot of stuff, but there's also a tremendous amount of misinformation out there. So it's really finding people that you're comfortable working with, who you trust, that you feel comfortable to ask whatever question, even if you think it sounds like a silly question or dumb question or something like that, to rather ask it and be sure that you get an answer. So from where we sit, we don't think of anything as being strange or unusual or dumb or stupid or anything like that. It's a case of there's a question, there's information that is required to be able to make a decision. So I believe that ask the questions, get the answers, formulate your own opinions about things as well.
What are the current questions that are on the top of people's minds right now as far as investors go? What's their main
at the
questions?
moment, yes. So a lot of people have been researching Perth as a destination for purchasing, particularly folks from the eastern states, because Perth is really good value for money. I mean, they look at what they can spend there and what they can get for the dollar, and they look at what they can get here as chalk and cheese, really. A lot of people are asking the sort of question, has the Perth market run its run? Is it past, And the information I would give them in terms of that is to say, no, it hasn't done its dash as such. As if we look back to, say, 2019, we started to see the rental market begin to pick up and run. And then COVID came. Just before COVID, we saw the purchase price in property starting to move. COVID hit us and we thought, wow, everything's going down the gurgler. And that didn't happen at all. We were quite surprised that the rental market continued to become stronger and stronger. Rents were going up. People were looking at that and thinking, wow, this is fantastic. Because if you think from 2014 to 2019, Perth was flat. It was a very dead market, really.
Yes.
And then during COVID, that sort of tightened up even more because they closed the borders. So people could not move. They could not, change. And so you had a lot of like fly in, fly out guys and girls who were from the eastern states or from New Zealand, from Tassie, who couldn't get to their families. So when the borders opened up, they brought their families across into WA because they didn't want to have to go through that process again because nobody knew what was going to happen. And with the opening up of the borders, the immigration numbers from interstate and from around the world picked up hugely. So we've seen in the last year, there's been about 60,000 immigrants coming into WA, into Perth particularly. That relates back to about 35,000 families. And if we look at what was built in the last year, only 14,000 homes were brought to the market. In a sort of established, well-balanced market, you want between 12,000 and 13,000 homes exchanging. Currently, there's 4,000, less than 4,000. So the pressure on the market is huge, and that shortage of stock is what is a very big driver. So we're seeing that things moving forward for investors is really good, and it's about being cashed up, ready to move, getting your finances in order, making sure you know what you can work with. So having those conversations with a broker to make sure you bed down, yes, this is what I can work with. And that would then help one in terms of getting into the market quicker when the right sort of property comes up. I think it comes down then to, okay, what is the strategy that you're wanting to work with? And typically you'll find people are either looking at chasing yield or they're chasing capital growth or organic growth, or the two sort of dynamics. And when you're looking at those basic strategies, it's very much a case of, yeah, what dollar can you work with, because that's going to, to a degree, determine the type of strategy that one can go with.
Do you have a preference there in terms of strategy?
Not really. It always comes down very much to the client. What if they've been talking to a financial planner, advisor, the accountant, whatever, what has come out of those discussions, what their requirements are, where's their what is their ideal sort of back-end result that they're looking to achieve.
What about people who come to you and they've seen some videos online about positively geared properties and they get all excited about it, and but they come to you and that you can kind of tell that they're a bit juvenile in their approach? Do you sort of guide them towards, other options?
I think it's very important to put all the cards on the table and to discuss the different choices, options that are available to them, because often they will have read something, seen something, thought, wow, that's ticks the boxes for them. But when they're talking with us and we can show them and demonstrate to them the other choices and options that are out there, suddenly it's sort of like a light bulb moment. It sort of wakes them and think, well, hang on, wait a minute. Why? They start asking questions. So that's really great to be able to then go into far more detail about different dynamics. Particularly people who come with the idea that positive cash flow is the only way to go with something. Yes, it can be that is the right opportunity for them. Again, it comes down to what sort of budget have you got for working with. If you've got a very low budget, it's going to be very difficult to get into a property that's going to give you organic growth. But you can get property that will give you the cash flow. So that could be a dynamic that works exceptionally well for you.
What sort of properties would give somebody a positive cash flow? Is there a sort of...
Yes, there's a, I suppose you could call it a rule of thumb idea, principle that one could apply. So when you're looking at your properties that are going to be your cash flow type properties, then think of it in terms of a dollar that you're spending. And of that dollar that you're spending, there's a percentage that is going into the purchase of the land, and a percentage that's going into the bricks and mortar that is giving you the rental income.
Yeah, the improvements.
Yeah. So when you look at those ratios, when you're looking at properties that are your cash flow type properties, then you're going to have possibly somewhere around your 85, 90% going into the building, and the lower percentage going into the actual land. So you could have...
So you're talking apartments there?
Very much it's
townhouses, that sort of thing?
Apartments would be one of them, definitely. Occasionally you'll find that you can get a very good cash flow with a villa. Townhouses a bit less so, because they're far more expensive to build and create and stuff like that. And generally your townhouses are built on more expensive land. So it's about that ratio as a general rule. And it's the same thing when you look at, say, going after capital growth opportunities. You wanting at least 70, 80% of your dollar going into the land, and very little going into the bricks and mortar that's giving you the rent. So it's like a seesaw effect.
Mm-hmm.
On the one side, you've got your yields driven. On the other side, you've got your capital growth driven.
Mm.
So where the one goes up, the other one's going down. So the more rental yield you're pushing, the less organic growth you're going to get. So you've got this effect, and understanding what percentage of your dollars buying what.
Yes.
That's going to give you that outcome.
Give me a picture of a unicorn property that would give both.
So if you go for a strategy that you're trying to get both the rental income as much as possible and capital growth as much as possible, you're not getting the best of either or. You're very much averaging things. So falling into that sort of group could be things like villas, definitely could fall into that category. The other one that falls in that category that we've bought for people in the past is where you're buying very sort of like a 3x2 home on a very small block of land. So very much some of your very newer suburbs or some of the infill areas where you can get something like that would give you that sort of technically like a balance, a 50-50 dynamic. And that can work very well for some people, particularly as a stepping stone if you've already got, say, a cash flow property. I think there's the dynamics that one is sort of looking at is understanding the budget, understanding the strategy, and then really going to the market and doing research work. So we go through a process of elimination where we're looking for all the reasons to get rid of something, to get rid of them, to get rid of properties, get rid of areas.
So, okay, let's start with areas then. If I could just interrupt there, Trev. What sort of areas would you knock out of the equation? Would you say that's not a good option for you?
Look, there's it in that process of elimination, you're very quickly going to find little pockets, little areas that aren't great. That you want to stay away from, you want to avoid. And the reason you're avoiding certain pockets and areas is because of the long-term outcome, all right? Because one day you're going to be in a position that you're going to sell that property and you're going to move on. You don't want to be in a position where the buyer comes in and says, oh, this is great property or that, but there's this issue or there's that issue or something like that, that is a negative that's going to cause them to want you to discount your pricing down the track. So the thing is, you want to get rid of those types of properties early, right up front, and get down to properties that are really ticking the boxes.
What sort of problems would you foresee? What you're talking about? Proximity to a major road or something? Or
Yes, definitely sort of intersections, roundabouts. You don't want to be right on top of a shopping centre because of the noise and particular elements that could be hanging around there. So you've got those sort of things. You've got power stations, those little blocks that are in the middle of suburbs. You don't want to be right next door to something like that. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different things. It could also be, that one's looking at areas that have got very high bushfire zone ratings or flood zone ratings or contaminated sites. There's all of these different aspects. There could be warnings on titles about certain issues that one wants to avoid. So all of these things would be part of what I suppose you would call a thorough due diligence that one would run on a property to check it out, to see is there something there that would cause you to walk away from it.
Are there any suburbs that you would recommend against or sort of go a bit soft on, shall we say?
It comes down very much to a person's budget. So if you're working with a very, say, low or restricted budget for getting into properties, yes, there will be in that research work, that process of elimination, areas that come up that you could get into something that's better. So it's not that much about, just cut that suburb, and so on, because you never know where the opportunity is going to come. And if that opportunity ticks the boxes then that's right for the client. But there will be a lot of pockets within suburbs that you'd stay away from. It could be because it's in a dip or a valley that potentially you could have, if you had a massive storm come through, could cause flooding, things like that. So you can't really say there's a particular suburb, don't go anywhere near it. The suburbs that possibly generally fall out of play might come up quite often in terms of research. But the budget is absolutely key to where one can go, what one can look for. Yeah.
What about suburbs like Baldivis and Wellard and those greenfield suburbs? What's your thoughts on that? I'm a little bit pessimistic on them myself, but what's your thoughts there?
Look, it depends. All right, so we've bought in Baldivis for folks, but they've been more so for folks who want to live in the area.
Yes.
All right, more home occupiers. So you've got that dynamic.
Would you expect to see capital growth in areas like that? I know Baldivis has, in the last 2.5 years, it's been spectacular. Yeah. So is Armidale, so is Gosnell, so is Kelmscott, and a lot of others. Do you, long term, would you expect to see suburbs, those greenfield suburbs?
I think long term you'll see them changing from sort of more cash flow type dynamic into a more organic growth dynamic as the land that is available gets taken up. Right. So you'll see that then putting pressure and driving the market. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing about that is if you say looked up at Joondalup, you've got areas up there that 25 years ago were greenfields and now are actually very nice suburbs. They're close to the ocean, they're on the freeway, they've got the railway line. You're ticking all the boxes for tenanting. So that has gone through a process of gentrification. And then the other thing to remember very much so is when you go into areas like that, you're buying to go in for a long-term hold. You're not buying to get into it on a short term. So if you did a fair bit of reading and research work about people who've created wealth, very often their wealth has come out of long-term hold of property. All right. So
when you're talking long-term, how many years?
More than 10.
More than 10.
More than 10. You don't want to be in and out of property because you've got huge costs getting in. You've got costs getting out. You've then got the tax man coming after you for capital gains as well. So you've got a lot of things that really shrink profitability as such. Mm-hmm. So it is about that long-term hold, unless you're developing. If you're buying, say, properties that you can demolish a house and build 3, keep 2, sell off 1, pay down some of the debt, things like that. A totally different sort of strategy. Much bigger budgets needed for doing something like that. So yes, budget unfortunately is the sticker, is the handbrake in the whole process, is what decides really what strategy to work with, what areas you can get into is driven by the budget really.
Talking about budget, we see a lot of sales come through at sort of that 600,000 mark, 6 to 7. What's your advice to people when it comes to budget? Do you just accept their budget or
Look, there's a very definite conversation to have around budget. It's to know, where do you draw the line in the sand? Because sometimes you'll have an investor that'll come to you and their broker said, look, 800,000 we can get you easily, but they come to you and they say, look, 500,000, and you take them through what they can get for that. All right. And when you ask them the question, can you go higher on your budget? Have you got a mark? They might come back and say, well, 650. So they're always trying to work towards trying to find something cheap, right, which is the wrong way to look at it. It's a case of, if you give us a budget, say of 500, and you could go to 650, rather give us the 650, because the time that it takes for us to find you something at 500, we could have found you a far better property in the higher range, which would give you better long-term outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's investors who do something like that are shooting themselves in the foot in terms of missing out, particularly in the Perth market now, which is in a very strong growth phase. It means that every deal that gets done is setting a new precedent in terms of what selling agents are going to use to motivate the next sale that they do as well.
I've heard other buyers' agents say, buy. In fact, this came from partly Veronica Morgan, who's a buyer's agent from the Eastern States, and partly from Stuart Wames. He's a financial planner. The basic advice was buy the best quality asset you can afford today.
I would agree with that. You want to get the best possible thing. You don't want to be going after something because it's maybe cheaper. All the stars have got to align really to get a good quality property that you're going to hold long term. It comes down budget, absolutely critical, but then strategy plays a very important part. What is the driver what is the motivation, the drive? What is the back end outcome that you're pushing for? All right. That is very important, because sometimes it might be that you've got this idea, this is the sort of property I would like to get, but in reality there's something very different which quite often people haven't stopped to think about, or that. So that taking them through that process is very important, so that they get a better understanding of the dynamics of something that would be a more long-term sort of hold as such. Yeah.
In your view, how would you define an investment grade property?
There's no such thing as investment grade property.
Rightio.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say, yes, this is investment grade property. All
Okay.
right. Nonsense. Any property could technically be investment grade.
Mm-hmm.
The drivers are the same fundamentals all the time. What is your budget allowing you to get?
Mm-hmm.
What is the best property that you can get for that budget? And what is the strategy? You'll get rid of all the noise and the nonsense and stuff that is of no good, so that what you end up with, that's your investment grade property.
So let's say someone comes to you with $700,000 to invest, and you're picturing the best property for them. What does that look like to you?
Question I have is, what are they going after? Are they chasing yield?
Mm-hmm.
They're chasing organic growth?
Okay, let's say they're chasing organic growth. Let's say that
growth.
In 10 or 15 years' time, they want to realise this capital gain, pay down their housing loan, and live in retirement debt-free, something along those lines. So we're going to favour capital growth.
Chasing capital growth. So your dynamics of capital growth, remember we talked about the dollar spend, percentage to land, percentage to the bricks and mortar?
Mm-hmm.
So where you're chasing capital growth, it's the land component that you want. And then land, based on the budget you can work with, what are the areas, the best growth areas you can get into? And you'll have quite a lot of areas, yes, you can buy into, but growth-wise, not that great. So it's really eliminating as much stuff so you can get down. If you could say, for example, sneak in the back door of a good growth area, but you're buying a property that might be a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, old style build in the 1960s or 70s, but it's on a 1/4 acre block of land. Well, thank you very much. You know, everybody around you is going to be developing, knocking down, rebuilding. And if you just sit on it, you are going to get growth disproportionate to just a normal house on a block of land, because that is now becoming a rarer commodity, a rarer opportunity. And in time, you'll probably on-sell that to a developer builder, or maybe even develop it yourself. I like that type of strategy very much, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah. So favour high land to price
For growth, yes.
ratio for growth. Yeah, okay.
And very important is what area can you get into? What area can you sneak into?
Now, when you're talking area, what in your mind makes a good area? You know, like the old proxy was always how close is it to the CBD?
Yes. I think these days one's got to look at a couple of dynamics there. So yes, you've got your CBD as your primary, all right, but getting close into your CBD is very costly. So you look at your major satellites. So take Joondalup to the north is a very powerful satellite area. You're on the freeway, you're on the railway line, you've got the uni up there, you've got a hospital up there, you've got all the things that tick the boxes for tenant, all right? Then similarly down south, you've got the development that's taking place of Coburn Central, also becoming a very powerful geographic center. Then you would have Fremantle Port as another potential center. Going east, you'd probably be looking at Midlands as being a geographic center, a much weaker one in my opinion. You would say jump down to Rockingham. Mm-hmm. Rockingham's got that foreshore with Waikiki, Warmborough, Safety Bay, that whole area running through there. They've upgraded the shopping centre. You've got good hospital down there. You've also got the freeway, the railway line. All of those things are there. You've got Garden Island, the military, the naval base, things like that. So there's a lot of very big positives that are driving that sort of area. So you've got these pockets that then become very important secondary centres, because very often people living in those areas are working close by in the local industrial, commercial areas, things like that. You will have quite a few people who come into the city, into Perth CBD, and you can see that just by the traffic on the freeways. It's like maniac. It's crazy stuff. So
proximity to major
infrastructure areas. Okay. So when you see areas opening up, say for example when they put the railway line through to the airport and under the airport and out the other side, that's opening up what was traditionally a very old geographic area, and you're seeing a gentrification taking place there because now people have got easier access back into the city. They don't have to go all the way around the airport to get there. So it's things like that that are opening up. You've got the railway line going up to Ellenbrook, which is opening up that whole strip there, linking back into Morley. So you've got those things that all start to play important little parts of a puzzle when one's looking at investing into property, definitely.
Are there any areas in your view that you would just stay clear of?
It depends on the budget.
Yeah, okay.
Let's
go back to our 600 to 700K budget. Is it
600 to 700K budget gets you into quite a number of nice areas, better areas, where if you were, say, looking at, say, for example, even looking at a balanced rental income and growth dynamic, you'd probably be looking at some of the areas that feed into Joondalup itself, maybe slightly north of Joondalup a bit, where you can get a very good quality 3x2 double lock-up garage, internal store, that open plan indoor-outdoor alfresco sort of area, where you're going to get a good rental. You're also going to pick up organic growth, and that would be a long-term hold for getting into something like that. It's also like a lot of people want to know about what happens if you say, like, if you were to go more regional in terms of buying properties.
Okay.
All right. So when we look at the more regional opportunities, very often what we find happening is that people are going through like a sea change or tree change dynamic. They're heading towards retirement and they want to sell up the property and move into a more relaxed sort of environment. So you'll find them looking at going into the more outer lying areas to buy properties. and that works well for them. Whereas if you looked at somebody who is looking at those sort of areas because they're cheap to get into, you can probably buy into some of those outlying areas for $200,000,
Yep.
a house on a block of land, sort of thing. So you'll have investors who will be looking at those. Now, when you look at those types of areas, very often they're a one economy type area. It could be an agricultural dynamic. It could be mining. It could be any one of those things. But you'll find that those type of properties for investment properties are very quick and easy to get into. If there's a change, a drought or something, that workforce packs up and moves. You're going to struggle to get rental and you're going to struggle to offload. So those sort of areas for investment, I would suggest, one stays away from them. Rather find something closer into Perth or those satellite areas that you can get into, because when it hits the fan out there, people come back into the city. So your chances of having a more regular investment property work far better for you. Yeah.
When I pack for a holiday, there's a rule that I have with my packing, is that you only pack things that can serve two purposes. And I think that is good advice for property as well. If you like what you're saying about you buy in Northam, it's a agricultural economy with a little bit of tourism thrown in.
Yes.
And once the agricultural economy goes, you don't have that second purpose.
Yes.
Whereas you come back to Perth, you've got, if mining doesn't crack it so well, you've still got a lot of other
opportunity. Yes. And that's why I think particularly for investing, you want to be looking at, yes, Perth CBD primary, or access to it must be good. So we've got very good infrastructure that's been built in terms of freeways and railway lines and stuff like that. And then those secondary satellite areas are very important, because you're wanting everything to stack up really well for a tenant.
Mm-hmm.
That they've got all the dynamics that they need in terms of access to work, schools, child daycares, medical, shopping centres, things like that. So that's all good. And those geographic centres often give you very good choices and opportunities as well.
So when somebody is setting themselves up to buy a property, what sort of people should be on their team? As if this is for investment.
For investment.
Purposes.
So number one, you want a good broker,
mm-hmm.
because the dollar is critical. I would say one needs to have a very good accountant,
mm-hmm.
who understands property, understands the tax dynamics around property. Possibly also have a financial planner,
mm-hmm.
so that you can be looking at a longer term strategy, not just sort of a short term dynamic.
Yeah.
And then in terms of, are you comfortable to pay a buyer's agent to do the job for you, to get the right property for you? Those would be the primary team, because the other aspects such as getting building reports, pest reports, swimming pool inspections, your settlement agents are all secondary type people. All the others are your primary go-to for question answer dynamics.
They all support the decision.
Yes.
Up before the decision's made.
Yes. So it's good to have a good, well-rounded team, particularly people who themselves understand property, who've been involved in property and things like that. And very often you'll find people refer people to each other and say, look, go and speak to this guy, that guy, this woman, whatever. Yeah.
You mentioned a broker. Why should people have a broker and not go straight to the bank?
We'll see how we can get into trouble. So the thing is, the bank's got you, all right? They can technically, in theory, do whatever they want, offer you whatever they want to offer, what's on their card, of what's their menu list, really. Whereas your broker has probably got 40, 50 different lenders, second-tier lenders, and within that, he's got a smorgasbord of different types of product that he can present you with. For him, it's also a process, or she, a process of looking at what are your dynamics, what is your financial position, what is your serviceability, and then going and matching that to the best possible investment property opportunity to work with.
I'm a massive fan of brokers. I think they're just so important in
I agree.
any property purchase, whether it be investment or owner occupier. They're really, really important. So in terms of buyer's agency, you're obviously a full-time buyer's agent, you and Liz. You know, like this is your gig. What value does a buyer's agent bring to the table?
Okay, so from our side of things, we've got over 20 years experience in the Perth market. We've been involved in investing in properties from our early 20s. So over 40 years of experience. We've been through the ups and downs, the pitfalls, getting burnt, all of those, experiences.
You've got grey hair and it's well earned, the sound of it.
So buyer's agent, a good quality buyer's agent is somebody who would take time to know what it is you're looking to do. And if we feel that what you're doing is wrong, we'll tell you. Mm-hmm. And it's about bringing that years and years of experience to the table. Yes, there's a fee for that, as there is in most things. But I think it's also about what are the dynamics that you're going to, or the process that you're going to go through with a buyer's agent. So for us, it's understanding the budget, the dynamics, the strategy, things like that. We go to the greater market, we go through a process of elimination, and eventually we get down to maybe 3 or 4 areas with a couple of products in it that we present, discuss with the client, and then invariably out of that, there's a choice to go after one of them, physically viewing it, doing FaceTime calls and that, and then doing things like the comparative analysis to establish where we believe the value lies in a property, which then also helps us set up how we're going to negotiate to go after it. We do that very detailed due diligence, which is looking for a reason not to buy something.
Yeah, I think that's you mentioned that before, and I think that to me sounds like the key. It's what's the reason not to buy it? Because the real estate agent who is selling it here's all the reasons why you should buy it.
Yes.
And you're there to go, well, here's the reasons not to buy it, or
confirmation.
If you want to buy it, here's a reason why it's not worth what you think it's worth.
Oh, that's and very often people undervalue a property. They come in and think, well, no, that's not worth that amount of money. Yet the evidence points to the fact that it's very well worth it, And I think the important thing for investors is really understanding the process they're going to go through, the potential timing of things. Given that it's a very tough market, it does take a bit longer to get what we're comfortable with to present to clients. And that can, the whole process from beginning to end could take anything from 3, 4, 5 months. Mm-hmm. It's a case of, if you engage with a buyer's agent, you need to be patient to get a good quality property based on strategy and budget. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yes, it's a crazy market like I've never seen the property market. I've been in property since 1985.
Yes.
And this is the craziest I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
Which brings me to, what is your strategy for getting people's name on a title? Like there's, in just about any property that you wanted to buy for a customer, one of your clients, there would almost certainly be multiple offers, and your offer needs to be
in the current market. You know, it's crazy. I went to Home Open 2 weekends ago. There must have been 60 buying couples go through the property.
Wasn't in Morley, was it?
It doesn't matter where it was. It was crazy. It was absolutely. I mean, it was like a train smash taking place. It was ridiculous.
So, what's your advice to people who they go to a home open? There's 60 groups of people there, and the agents just stop taking names and numbers, and they're just going, if you want to make an offer, here's the link. Just go and
do the paperwork.
Do the paperwork yourself. What's your advice to people who want to get their name on the title?
Come and talk to us. That's cheeky, but yes. No, it's a difficult one to answer because it comes down to the coalface right at the time when you are putting your offer in. What are the dynamics that are at play at that point in time? What is the conversation that you're having with the agent? What is the indication of, in terms of how many offers have they received? I've got 8 offers. I've got 10 offers. I'm expecting another 4 offers, things like that. What is the pricing indication? Where is that? So very often we see these days properties priced and it sells 10, 15, 20% over that. So it's really about understanding and getting a sense and a feel for where's the market. And that's where it's critical to be in a position to have done background research on what recently has sold through an area.
But sometimes the recent sales, they don't get you anywhere near the number that you need to put on an offer and acceptance to secure the property.
This is the part that is tricky, and that's why that conversation before you put your offer in is critical. And knowing your budget, knowing your limitations of your budget. One of the other things that we're seeing is because prices are going over where they advertise them from by that huge amounts, $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 over, people need to actually readjust their thinking in terms of where's their starting point going to be so that they can get something within their budget. Otherwise, they think they can get it and they keep missing. They become incredibly frustrated. We see that at auction.
Yep.
All right. You see that at auction where people have lost, and then they go for broke and they'll go way over, and I think when that happens, it's unfortunate because I think they wake up with a headache and they're going to have to sit on that property as a home to live in or whatever for a very, very long time before it catches up to where it should be. And then I think strategy, timing is important as well in terms of offer, timing, and motivation. How can you motivate the selling agent to work with you? You might not be the highest offer, but there could be a dynamic that you can bring forth as an argument to say, well, this is why you should be considering us.
It's
not just price.
Such as?
Look, we're a young family and we love the area. We're not going to do any changes to the house. We love it as it is.
A few emotional
triggers.
Yeah, okay.
There's these things, and that really always comes out. Where are you at when you making the offer? What is the dynamic there that you can read or weave into the fabric of the offer?
I interviewed Claire Nation from the Property Exchange on this podcast several weeks ago. One of the tips she had for buyers is, if at all possible, get in front of the agent to make your offer.
Look, it makes a very big difference.
Do it old school.
It's a case of creating that connection.
Yes.
You're not just something out there in the cloud. I've now created a connection with you. I've told you a story.
Yeah.
I've solicited information from you. We're working together to get a good deal for your seller and for my buyer. So that is a very positive, very, very positive way of doing it. And if one can do it like that, great. But a lot of the agents, selling agents these days, you send it to me on the internet and I'll decide whether we put it forward or we don't, or we put everything forward, but you don't have a chance in hell, you know.
I told a story recently on this podcast and I shared it on my Facebook as a video, and it was where this unit in Belmont, quoting from $395, it ended up selling for $512.5.
Wow.
And all the indications were that it probably only was worth just over $4. So from $395 is probably about right, but the market just drove it. And then there was another one almost 2 weeks later, sold for, I think it was $530, same sort of, almost identical product.
Right. Yeah.
And what I said in my video, and I'm keen to hear your reaction, is if you don't think you've paid too much, you missed out. Which is to say, you've got to be super aggressive. You've got to go in and you think, well, all the evidence says that it's worth $550.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in at $600, which really probably means I should have gone in at $610. So go in at $610. And
so yes, don't second think yourself on things, because if in the work that you do in preparing yourself for a purchase, you'd be looking at a number of factors. And if you say, for example, you're chasing yield on a property and you're thinking, well, ideally I want to get 5.2% yield, but I'm prepared, if needs be, to go down to 4.8%, then work your numbers on the 4.8 to get it, because everybody else is probably thinking 5. So then, don't come in and think that they're going to come back to you with a counter offer. This market is not like the old market where you could negotiate and yo-yo backwards and forwards.
People are still doing that.
You know, 6 years ago, I had a counter offer situation that went backwards and forwards. I think it was a total of 27 times. Today, you'd have one shot at it, and that's it.
If you see a counter offer, it is incredibly rare.
No, not in this market. So you've seriously got to put your best foot forward if you want it, you know. But also, by the same token, you don't want to go crazy overboard. All right. So I've seen some properties where they've gone absolutely, I reckon, mashuga in terms of what they've offered, because a week later something's come up that has been a far better opportunity to go after. But the thing is, you can't wait for something better to come because the market's moving.
That's right.
It's a case of what's in front of you right now that works.
It's probably your best option.
Yes.
Trevor Dunkley, this has been a really good conversation. And I think that anyone that's looking to buy an investment property, I hope they listen to this and listen to your advice.
Yes.
Because it was just full of good advice, Trev.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Now, for those people who want to get hold of you, work with you as a multi-award-winning buyer's agent team,
yes,
how would they get hold of you?
There are a couple of ways, I suppose, via our website. Just Google Property Wizards Buyer's Agents would be the one. They can phone me on directly.
Do you want to share your mobile number?
Or
no, you don't know it. That's okay. Go to Property Wizards.
Go to Property Wizards and go there. Yeah, that'll be the best way. And then book a phone call appointment if needs be, or take the number, phone us directly. If I can answer the phone there and then, I will. And we can take it from there then.
Trev, been awesome. Thank you so much for the generous way you shared your knowledge with the community. It's much appreciated.
No, great. Thanks for having us. Appreciate that as well.
And until next week, this has been Peter Fletcher with the WA Property Q&A podcast. And that wraps up another episode of the WA Property Q&A. We hope you found our discussion valuable and gained some valuable insights into the world of property buying in Western Australia. Remember, while we strive to provide useful information, it's crucial to consult with the appropriate professionals before making any investment decisions. Don't forget to tune in next week for another exciting episode where we continue to unravel the mysteries of the WA property market. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, happy property hunting, and remember to seek the right advice for your personal circumstances. Thank you for listening.